The clerk to please call the roll.
All council members are present.
Would you all then stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a brief moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the October 11th, 2022 meeting and the agenda of the October 25th, 2022 meeting in accordance with state law, city council, and housing authority policy. We have no presentations on today's agenda. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
No, sir.
Council? That brings us to the consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull any consent items? Staff?
No, sir.
Angela, do we have any speaker cards?
No speaker cards, sir.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent items then. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
That brings us to public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments related to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, do we have any speaker cards for public comment?
Yes, sir, we do. We have two. The first one is Yanis Jacob.
Okay.
I believe Mr. Jacob left the chamber. The second speaker is Stephen Seidlowski.
If Mr. Jacob comes back sometime during the meeting, we'll go ahead and reopen public comment and let him speak his piece. Hello, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council, and El Cajon citizens. I am lay brother Stephen Gerard Seidlowski. I am delighted to let all of you know that I actually travel the United States speaking on the future possibility of cities, especially with cities with charters such as your city, Mayor Wells, to move in the new direction of establishing personhood. It would require a modification to your city charter. You have the special advantage in your city because you have a charter. Cities like San Clemente and Temecula, who already desire to move in this new personhood direction in the state of California, do not have a city charter, so I'm already talking to them about that particular possibility. We do have this language in the city chart. We do have this language because my hometown of Lorain, Ohio recently attempted to become a charter city. And during that whole process, I analyzed where the city could actually introduce personhood. It happens to be in the preamble covenant language of your city charter. I believe California and Ohio are both homestead states. So there might be a little bit of differences between the states. I'm going to leave all of you, council members and beloved mayor, a Bible bookmark, and it'll have my information on it. And if you would like to get together with me to have a little round table, possibly with your city mayor, possibly with some church leaders, and possibly with your legal counsel, I would be delighted to give you an initial education series on this new possibility of personhood. Today, I want to let you know that I have helped to establish 40 Days for Life. You have that going on in your very city right now. And I helped to establish 40 Days for Life in the Queen City of Cincinnati I did my master's MBA at Xavier University in Cincinnati. If you delightfully want to know, I did my undergrad engineering at Purdue University. And I'm also honorably served as an enlisted and an officer in the United States Navy. So I believe that what I have to share is very important. I believe you will find that it merits constitutionality also. Whenever cities desire to move in the new direction, you're going to have to take the stand that when you move in the new direction, it does pass the constitutionality test, so to speak. So let me just close with the joy of the Spirit of God, its love for His creation. Hope to hear from all of you soon. God bless you.
Well, perfect timing. Let me see if there's any questions for you. Hold on. Questions? No, thanks. Thanks for coming. Did our other speaker come back?
No other speakers, sir.
Okay. Okay, we are now at public hearing. Now's the time. We have one item to consider. Item 6 is regarding the Permanent Local Housing Allocation Grant, and I see staff is eager to tell us about all this.
Very eager. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. I'm Jose Dorado with the Housing Division, and today's presentation, I'll provide a summary of the proposed actions and seek City Council's approval of the Permanent Local Housing Allocation Spending Plan. Just 1 second, we're trying to get the
Take your time.
presentation on the screen. Thank you. To begin with, PLHA funding, also known as SB2, that was established in September of 2017. This was when the California legislature approved the Building Homes and Jobs Act, which established a $75 recording fee on real estate transactions. SB2 funding, also known as PLHA, provides local governments with funding for eligible housing and homelessness activities. Under PLHA, funding is provided through formula grants to entitlement jurisdictions. This is based on the formula prescribed under federal law for the Community Development Block Grant Program over a 5-year funding period. The 5-year estimate is $3.87 million, with city staff proposing the following 2 eligible uses. 65% of the funding will be earmarked for homeless services. 30% of the funding will be earmarked to incentivize the production of accessory dwelling units. Per AB 671, the city is required to create a program that incentivizes the creation of ADUs. The remaining 5% can be used for administrative costs to oversee PLHA funding and administer the 2 proposed programs. So the first eligible activity that city staff is recommending is a homeless services program. The homeless services program funding will provide for the following eligible activities: case management services, housing navigation, rapid rehousing, and emergency shelter. So as our CDBG coronavirus relief funds start winding down, now these PLHA funds will be available to increase or retain service levels. So the second proposed program includes incentivizing the production of accessory dwelling units. As mentioned previously, due to AB 671 and housing element requirements, the city is now required to develop a program that incentivizes the production of ADUs. The program design includes providing up to $100,000 in the form of a low-interest deferred loan. Consistent with PLHA program requirements, income limits for the occupant of the ADU cannot exceed 150% of the area median income at an affordable rent level. No payments are due until the end of the loan period. That could range from 15 to 30 years. The loan term will be selected by the applicant. So this slide includes the proposed rent and income limits. For example, if a property owner wishes to construct a 1-bedroom ADU, The rent for the unit can be based on local market conditions. However, the maximum rents and income limits may not exceed the state published limits at the time the ADU is occupied. For 2022, the maximum rent is $32.06 for a one-bedroom. And these limits change annually. Usually they go up by a formula, but they increase annually. Next slide. So in summary, staff recommends council approve the PLHA plan for the proposed homeless services and ADU programs. Staff also recommends council accepts and appropriates the 2019 to 2021 allocations of $2,614,790.45. We ask council to adopt the resolution based on HCD's approved template. And then staff will submit the PLHA plan to HCD for the review and approval.
Thank you.
This concludes staff's presentation, and housing staff is available to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice presentation. Questions? Steve?
One of your first slides says that the 5-year spending plan was $3.87 million.
Yes.
But for 5 years.
Yes.
We're asked to approve $2.6 million for 3 years. Can I assume the difference is for years 4 and 5?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Any more questions?
We're not planning on adding any new services. It's all existing services for homeless that we were using through CDBG is now going to be funded by the PLHA.
Correct. We're going to do existing services, but we may expand some of these services, such as rapid rehousing.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
I have a question on the rental unit and the income. So can we go back to that ADU? There you go. So the household size, is that for the ADU or the household size of the owner of the property?
Those are two different charts. So the chart on the left just gives the occupant size for the income limits, and the one on the right is the unit. So there's no, like in a studio, it could be 2 persons, and a 1-bedroom, it could be 3 persons, and a 2-bedroom, it could be 4 persons.
Are these supposed to be affordable?
These are maximums. So,
but I don't mean to interrupt, but we're talking a studio for $2,800 a month.
These are maximums.
So and these are HUD public. These aren't our numbers. This is what
Right.
HUD says you have to. That's the max that an individual could charge these folks. So that doesn't mean what they have to charge, but I would recommend we at least stay with the HUD level, so we're not varying from what their regulations are.
Okay, I get that, but who's going to be able to afford that if you?
Well, it'll also be based on market rate. So, if they rent it for $2,805, they probably won't get any tenants at that level. These are just established maximums,
Okay.
but the market is going to bear what the rent that somebody is willing to pay.
Okay, and this was all established at the state level?
Yes, these limits were state-established limits.
Okay, thank you.
I got one more.
To be clear, any resident in El Cajon can apply for this loan up to $100,000 at 3%. Any resident.
Any resident,
Property owner, I should
as
say.
long as they have a property that can accommodate an ADU.
That can accommodate the ADU. Okay, so that's good because any property owner that has room can do this.
Yes.
The chart we're looking at is for those inside the ADU. Those inside the ADU cannot make more than this much in income as shown, and the property owner cannot charge more than the amount rent shown.
Correct.
Can charge less
They can
if
charge
that's
less.
the market. Thank you.
Just to be clear, are there any income limits to the property owner to participate in the program?
Not in this program. There is a state program that provides $40,000 as a grant incentive, but that has limits for the property owner. So somebody wanted to leverage our money with the state money, then it'll be the most restrictive.
What
of-
was the dollar amount here again?
For ours is $100,000.
Okay. All right. Any more questions? What a great program.
Thank you.
Question on the payment terms. Is that so they have a option between 15-year and 30-year, and then is it just interest only? Is it amortized or?
It's between the term is between 5 years and 30 years, and it's deferred. So there's no payments. So the thought process is that as they're getting rents, they're setting aside amounts in order to repay back the loan.
Oh, makes sense.
Once the loan's repaid, we provide those funds to another person who wants to build an ADU
But they repay it at the very end.
at the very end.
So they get like a balloon payment.
Correct. But they set the terms. So if they want 5 years, more accelerated, then they can choose 5 terms, or 5 years. If they want 30 years, then they can select 30 years.
Okay. And if they choose to, can they pay towards that principal?
Correct. They can make payments, but we advise people not to make payments, to rather have that in a interest-bearing account.
I see. Okay.
I do have another question. So you're familiar with hero loans?
Yes.
Is this like a hero loan in the sense that if that person were to go to refinance the property, that this other extra amount on the mortgage would count as the amount that they have borrowed?
It's not like a hero loan. The hero loan is kind of based on their equity in the property. This one, we're not asking for them to have, that amount of equity like the hero loan requires. It just requires them to be able to have a property that can build ADU on it.
So my question is, say I have a house with a $600,000 mortgage. I borrow another $100,000 against this for the ADU. If I go to refinance that property, will now the amount that I'm refinancing be based upon $700,000 or $600,000?
Well, it depends, right? So if you're gonna repay our loan, then you're gonna pay back, the first mortgage and then our second mortgage. So you have to repay it back, unless you're refinancing for rate and term.
Of course. I was just. I think that answers my question. All right. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you. Any more questions?
You're saying you collateralize the loan against the owner's principal residence with a lien?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
There'll be loan instruments.
Thank you. That answers my question better.
Yeah, there'll be a loan instrument to ensure the affordability for the term.
Okay. I appreciate you coming. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see if there are any speaker cards on this item.
No speaker, sir.
Okay, then. Let me see if there's. All right. I need to make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Well, this sounds like a great project. Anybody want to have a discussion, or would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll move that we approve the staff recommendation, all 3 items.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Okay, we have one administrative report on today's agenda. Item 7 is the independent third-party analysis of the city's budget and fiscal practices, and I believe that our city manager will be telling us about this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. We had hoped to have Mr. Scott Barnett, the author of the document, but he had an emergency and is not able to attend. So I'll give the presentation, and then at the end we'll talk about an opportunity to bring Mr. Barnett back if that's something that the council would like to do. So as you recall, on September 13th, the city council authorized the request for an independent and third-party analysis of the city's budget and fiscal practices. As part of that process, the city issued a request for proposals or qualifications. Deputy Mayor Mitchell and Councilmember Ortiz sat on a committee to help vet those. It was an easy vetting process since we received one proposal from the San Diego Taxpayer Advocate, whose president and CEO is Scott Barnett. He teamed up with a professor emeritus from San Diego State who taught in the public administration program, and if anyone's had an MPA from San Diego State, they probably had him as a professor dealing with budget issues. So one of the things that we asked the consultant to do is really to identify, are there ways to either trim the budget or conduct some economic development that would equate to $13 million that would require or not require the need for Measure P to be put onto the ballot. And so that was his initial responsibility as a study. We received the study on October 10th. That was sent out to the City Council, and there's 6 key findings that came out of this. If we can get the PowerPoint up. There we go. Finding 1 was that the city's fiscal policies and budgeting practices are prudent, that the city has excellent senior management, especially over budgetary issues. The city supplies services in an efficient manner, so there was no gaping holes in which we could save money there. He then said there's not a clear identified budget cut to add additional services, the ones that the council identified as part of the Measure P spending plan, without cutting existing core services. There's no significant new or near-term revenue sources available through economic development, and the only way to provide those new or augmented services as identified by the council would be through some sort of a taxing measure or taxing revenue measure. There was a lot of other findings that were identified. One of them was, from an economic development perspective, if the council were to have a magic wand and you could duplicate 25 of the city's largest sales tax producing entities, that would actually accomplish your goal of about $11 million. The challenge is that we physically don't have enough space to put 25 Targets and Walmarts and Home Depots and Toyotas and Hondas. The other challenge is that those stores don't exist. If you were to sort of embryonically create another Target or a Home Depot, it would just cannibalize the existing Target and Home Depot. So it wouldn't really double your revenues. By having 2 Targets doesn't double your revenue. So he said over the long term, there's opportunities for economic development, especially looking at either some of our underutilized land, the Kaiser property, maybe looking at opportunities to partner with the school district for some joint development of maybe underutilized land between the city and school district. So those were some of the ideas that he came up with. He also said that over a period of time, we could explore managed competition, maybe looking at how we contract for EMS services. He mentioned ideas. Another idea was the development of civic center development, which we've been talking about for a while. Those are primarily some of the big ideas that he came up with. He said very apologetically that he could not be here, but if the council would like him to come back and present on some of those different ideas, he'd be willing to do that. And with that, I can answer any questions that you may have about the report, or he can come back at a later date and answer those questions. So up to the council.
Council, questions? I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and it's kind of what we expected.
But it's good to have a third party to verify that, so it's helpful.
I do think it was the right thing to do. So, Angela, do we have any comments on this item?
No comments, sir.
Okay. Any further discussion, or would somebody like to proceed with a motion? You just want us to
Just,
accept the report?
Receive and file, yes.
Yeah. Somebody like to make that motion?
Second.
Thank you.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
There are no commissioner reports on today's agenda. Item 8 is my activities report. We're now at the reports for council members. Councilmember Goebel.
As reported, with 2 great pieces of good news. On the MTS front, perhaps a month ago, Captain Ransweiler went out to the professional medical supply business, which is at the Arnell MTS station. They were having a significant amount of problems with the MTS parking lot, which is called a flagged lot, narrow, long driveway, and then it goes behind the building somewhat with a large lot behind it. They were having a lot of illegal activity back there, including a lady and another person who were doing illegal activity, and she had brought along her kids in close proximity. which is on video. So Ransweiler got us all in touch. We went to MTS, and MTS today told us they're going to put a fence and gate on the sliding back property. So that saves a lot of bad things from happening back there. That's great news. So thank you to Captain Ransweiler for being a great partner in visiting and moving that along. On the advanced water purification front, there's even better news. We look like so far we're going to avoid court with the city of San Diego. We had a hearing scheduled on October 14th, postponed to October 28th, which is this Friday. We're going to push that back to November 18th at this time because in 2 days we go before the city of San Diego's environmental committee with all of the agreements that we need, which is great news that the city has really sped this along. So if it comes out of the environmental committee where 4 of the council members sit and goes to the full council on the 14th, then we're done. And we have all the agreements we need and we avoid court. So we've had access to the property. That is a win for the 500,000 people who are part of this project in East County. So far, so good with the city of San Diego. And we're moving along, and that's great news to be able to knock on everything that's wood around you, avoid court.
That is wonderful.
That's it.
Anything else? Okay, thanks. Gary?
As reported.
Phil? As reported. Michelle?
As reported.
Record time today. All right, we have one joint councilmember report from Councilmembers Goebel and Ortiz. Who would like to?
I'll fire it off.
Okay.
Councilmember Ortiz and I have been meeting with motel owners to understand their concerns and operations in the motel regarding the voucher program for people who are homeless. And we've listened to certainly how they operate. I think our focus on this particular committee is less on the voucher side and more on the public safety side. We know that last month the police were called out to several instances, had several calls for service, and what we are looking for is to make sure that the public is safe, that the other residents at the motels are safe. And so our focus really is on community safety and people safety, less so on the voucher side. And I think we're making good progress. We have another meeting tomorrow with another set of owners. Mr. Ortiz?
Okay.
All right. He says we're good.
Thanks for doing that hard work. That's important. Thank you so much. All right, council, any questions on this or comments? Angela, did we receive any speaker cards for this item?
No speaker, sir.
All right. I guess we need a motion for this. Just accept the report. I'll make a motion to accept the report. Second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
There are no general information items on today's agenda. Item 14 is a first reading of ordinances to adopt by reference the 2023 California Building Standards Code, Title 24. And I'll ask staff to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor. This is our every third year adoption of the uniform codes. We call them uniform codes or California building codes. Our building official, Mr. Sanchez, is here, and he's prepared the report as well as assisted us in preparing ordinances. As you may recall, with the adoption by reference provisions, we typically take the conservative approach of introducing it without a public hearing, but we will have a public hearing at our next meeting on the 8th. It's already been advertised for a public hearing as such. These simply adopt the 2022 codes for each of these. There are exceptions to them from time to time. In order to adopt the codes, if you want to make exceptions, a local agency can do so through this ordinance. So our various chapters, 7 or 8 chapters, I think, on the agenda, not each of them have exceptions, but each of them are adopting these uniform codes. Please note that we did hand out a revised version of the fire code. Fire department just recently indicated they'd rather remove one of the appendices to the uniform or the California Fire Code and not included in ours. So we've deleted that, and that's Appendix D. So what you have in front of you is slightly different because it specifically excludes Appendix D from being adopted by reference. It's one that they felt is not only unnecessary but could hamper operations a bit. So Mr. Sanchez is here if you have questions on the technical side of things, and if you have questions about the form of the ordinance, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. All right. Angela, we have speaker cards on this?
No speakers, sir.
All right. Any further discussion, or would someone like to proceed with a motion? Just need a motion to adopt.
There'd be a motion to introduce the, for first reading, the various ordinances.
Yeah, move to introduce the ordinances.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by a unanimous vote, and the titles of the ordinances for California Building Code: an ordinance repealing sections 15.04.010, 15.04.030, and 15.04.050 of Chapter 15.04 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code, and adopting sections 15.04.010, 15.04.030, 15.04.050, 15.04.055, 15.04.065, and 15.04.107 to Chapter 15.04 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code, adopting the California Building Code 2022 edition as amended by reference. California Electrical Code, an ordinance repealing section 15.20.010 of Chapter 15.20 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code, adopting the California Electrical Code 2022 edition as amended by reference, and adding a new section 15.20.010 of Chapter 15.20 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code. California Mechanical Code, an ordinance repealing sections 15.48.010 and 15.48.050 of Chapter 15.48 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code, adopting the California Mechanical Code 2022 edition as amended by reference, and adding new sections 15.48.010 and 15.48.050 of Chapter 15.48 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code. California Plumbing Code, an ordinance repealing sections 15.52.010 and 15.52.050 of Chapter 15.52 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code, adopting the California Plumbing Code 2022 edition as amended by reference, and adding new sections 15.52.010 and 15.52.050 of Chapter 15.52 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code. California Residential Code, an ordinance repealing section 15.54.010 of Chapter 15.54 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code, adopting the California Residential Code 2022 edition as amended by reference, and adopting a new section 15.54.010 to Chapter 15.54 to Title 15. California Fire Code, an ordinance repealing section 15.56.010 of Chapter 15.56 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code, adopting the California Fire Code 2022 edition as amended by reference, and adding a new section 15.56.010 of Chapter 15.56 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code. California Green Building Standards Code, an ordinance repealing section 15.60.010 of Chapter 15.60 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code, and adopting the California Green Building Standards 2022 edition as amended by reference, and adding a new section 15.60.010 of Chapter 15.60 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code. California Existing Building Code, an ordinance repealing sections 15.84.010 of Chapter 15.84 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code, adopting the California Existing Building Code 2022 edition as amended by reference, and adding a new section 15.84.010 of Chapter 15.84 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code. And lastly, California Historical Building Code, an ordinance repealing section 15.88.010 of Chapter 15.88 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code, adopting the California Historical Building Code 2022 edition as amended by reference, and adding a new section 15.88.010 of Chapter 15.88 of Title 15 of the El Cajon Municipal Code. Thank you.
And now
Say
in
it.
Spanish.
Angela, I keep telling you, next time it's got to be by memory, or it doesn't count.
I think she missed a line.
Yeah, do it again. All right. No, there are no second readings of ordinances and no closed session on today's agenda. This brings us to adjournment, the adjourned regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority Successor Agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 25th day of October 2022, is adjourned till Tuesday, November 8th, 2022. We're going to have a special meeting at 3 o'clock p.m. Thank you very much.